So thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about my white paper, which was what effect do safety initiatives and injury reduction programs have on the financial operations of school districts. With that said, I'd like to first kind of have us do a quick little exercise to warm us up. So I'm going to ask everyone to take out a pen and have a piece of paper, and I want you to just sign your name. So as you're doing that, you may get the feel for what I'm doing here. Everybody can probably look at my slide, sign their name, no problem. Now what I'd like for you to do after you sign your name, I want you to take the pen from your dominant hand, put it in your non-dominant hand, and I want you to try to sign your name. Now you should struggle a little bit with it, and quite frankly, some of you will look at me and say, I'm just not doing it, that's too hard. Things like that, I can't hear, but you're going through it. And then the third thing I'm going to ask you to do is just quickly sign your name, very quickly. There you go. Now, the reason I had you do that is exactly what's on the slide. Change is difficult. Sometimes we understand that as we're doing change, it's very difficult to accomplish it. And what this white paper does is kind of talk about something that may be obvious to a lot of you, but really, what is the problem that we're going through and what do we need to change in the schools? And I wanted to start with our problem statement, and that problem statement is about 40.6 million people in the United States, or 1 out of 8, sought medical attention for workplace injury. Pretty big problem there. The other thing is the economic impact is almost 900 billion, and that was in 2015, so we know everything goes up, it's probably up. What's that per household? About $7,100 or $7,000. Again, I think we all could use that $7,000 free if someone offered it to us, so it's pretty nice. And then the last thing that's a problem, educational institutions have limited resources and they need to protect those. So say we've presented a pretty good problem there. The next thing we'll look at is how significant is the problem? Well, when I throw up the $2 billion annually, you're going to say, wow, that is a problem. And how about 42% of the injuries are caused by non-work injuries? 1/4 of the employers caused about 42%. And one of my things in the white paper we talk about is what you learn at work you carry home. So it also has benefits there. But here's the really important thing. Injuries to workers change their life. Serious injuries, and as you well know, even fatalities, 46% of the work disability costs are there. So I think we've demonstrated we've got a problem. It's fairly significant. So what did the literature say about it? Well, again, most of our injuries at school were head, neck, spine, and upper torso. And as we all know, those are things that we move around, and actually every time you're hurt, it makes a difference. The mechanism of injury, usually, and we know this, slips, trips, and falls, and that can be falls. We've all heard the story about the teacher that was up above, hanging up new things at the start of the year, fell off and missed the entire year. So usually they contact an object, or even during the winter they slip and fall. And here's the thing, direct costs. We're not talking imaginary or costs that people come up with. $30,000 preventing one sprain to a school district personnel. Again, that comes from Safety Plays. It's a database that you can look at. What does one sprain from one of the injuries cost? Pretty significant. I think we could all use that $30,000 in our classrooms or even in the board. So again, here's the three things we looked at. The first thing was, can potential reduction of injuries lower costs lower the cost and increase resources? Well, we really looked at injuries are prevented by education and engagement of ideas. So again, this is a very one-sided presentation. I'd love to have you all here to hear some of the ideas about exactly what the paper talked about. What are delays in responding to injury? Someone gets hurt, they go to a doctor, they're not called by the school for a couple of weeks. Has a very negative impact on their entire feeling about the school district. The other thing, return to work, and we've seen this, teachers that are off work that can't contribute suddenly start feeling like, well, maybe they don't miss me, maybe there's something going on. So instead of losing those resources, again, we're looking at how they can accomplish goals. Remember, not all of the goals of a school or a district are in the classroom. Sometimes that experienced, knowledgeable teacher can lend his or her assistance to improving the entire school board. So definitely want to look at that, and that's a great way to reduce costs. The next thing, really, cost savings equals safety initiative programs. And the white paper presents a couple of ways that that occurs. First of all, we talked about direct costs, but also indirect costs. We can talk about employee turnover, productivity losses. Let's face it, when a substitute comes in, when a teacher's injured, it takes them time to pick up things and actually move along. It takes us time as an organization to even get them into the classroom and all the support they need. Those are indirect costs. The other thing, before you start out on a cost savings or a safety initiative, you need to go to the staff and say, what type of needs, what type of training do you need? So that training needs assessment needs to be presented to various individuals, including staff, teachers, even administrators. And again, a great place to talk about the emergencies, whether they're natural or man-made. One of my best examples is, when's the last time a teacher had a nosebleed in a classroom? Fairly frequent, it occurs. How do we respond? Those what-if drills can really save resources because, again, you're making good decisions on that. So just another example. The other thing the paper talked about, and we all know this, and this was the last thing with the safety initiatives, basically value-added training equals engaged training, which also equals good training. So as we looked at that, the trainer should not be a safety expert. We don't want the experts up there talking safety jargon. We want someone that can tell a story, just like Bullet 2 talks about. And those stories, when they involve our area or our school, are even better. Because remember, when we go to this training, we're going to listen to the favorite station that we all love, WIIFM, which is What's in It for Me. So again, that's an area we can improve there. So the last thing the white paper focused on was safety leadership. And I say safety leadership, let's face it, leadership in general will also benefit here. But you can use safety, which is very organic to all of us. And we know if someone's talking about our safety, our productivity, our well-being, we know they care about us. And what they actually do is give us situational awareness where we'll actually stop and look at the situation. It also gives us, it will enhance our injury prevention, allow us to do hazard modification and even elimination. And let's just face it, just like with the bloodborne pathogens I mentioned, we understand the regulatory environment, we provide better service to our students, and quite frankly, we make the workplace a lot better. With that said, I've got some actions that we outlined in the white paper. This is what school leaders need to do. And I said this is make that commitment to safety. Demonstrate management commitment. In other words, walk the walk. If we have barricades up that people are not supposed to go in, administrators shouldn't cut through it. We need to be accountable for the performance. If there's something that goes wrong, we need to take that finger and point it right back at us. It's easy for us to say what they did wrong, but can we look at what we as an organization can do better? And we also want to encourage at all levels an acceptance of safety, not only for us, but also to create that safety culture and really just manage the change where we realize that safety does cost us. the last thing that we were going to talk about is my conclusions. And I wanted you to know that there's limited evidence indicating safety programs reduce resources, and in particular for workers' comp. But those limited evidence-based research are very dramatic. So I want to encourage you, as you've watched this, and hopefully the white paper, as we read that, will encourage you to go out and talk about safety programs, not just security for workplace violence, not just security for active shooters, but look at these safety programs that get overlooked. The other thing, which we know, it'll benefit us, obviously, as teachers, we'll be able to teach, but it also benefits the learners and the learning. Let's face it, we are all experienced professionals. We recognize things in our classrooms that others may not. That's why we do peer learning with our students. They help each other. Well, guess what? When we're not there to encourage, or we're not there to understand, the learners and the learning environment suffers. So we need more educational institutions to attempt safety enhancement programs to really prove this connection. And the last thing, and I hope you guys have realized this just during this presentation, safety program engagement improves morale. So with that said, I had a few references that I used to highlight in this PowerPoint. One of the best one, if you've not used it, the Bureau of Labor Statistics there, my second one. The other one, if you don't know anything about Scott Geller, I was fortunate enough to know Mr. Geller. He has a great book on actively caring by teachers. If you drop by Dr. McIntosh's office, she has a signed copy of it. Please go by and talk to her about that. And the other thing that I wanted to do, there's a great case study, again, that was done in 2013 that I highlighted some of the things out of the Journal of Safety and Health. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.